Tallahassee's Jeff Cameron and Tom Lang.
Well, I'll do it this way. Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. This would be the Court Report as well as the Jeff Cameron Show. It's 1 hour of this and 2 hours of Seminole headlines that'll take you from 4 to 6. But it is, I have to admit, a welcoming respite for the moment as we get an opportunity to talk about Florida State basketball. Been too long, guys. Been too long. Welcome in on YouTube. Welcome in if you're listening on the old-fashioned radio. If you like to email, you can, jcs@979espnradio.com. On Twitter, it's at J Cameron Show. As we say, a little bit of a shake-up here on a Wednesday show, Ballsmic Wednesday show. I would also point you to, as I often do, there is a new Hamalytics up. My boy here, Tom Lang and Chris Malagon, doing the report for you. It's time to get back to basketball. It's weird. It's kind of I gotta get laser-like focus. I'm sure the Hamalytics helps you do that, Tom. By the way, Florida State resuming tonight, 6:30. So pretty much right after Seminole Headlines ends at 6:30. They're tipping it off. The Noles, lest we forget, 5-2, 1-1 in the ACC. This has been quite the hiatus. NC State, meanwhile, is 6-3, 2-2 in the ACC. The game is on the ACC network. NC State's a weird team. I want to start with you. What did you find out? What can you give me the Cliff Notes version? For those that want more, can certainly look at Florida State and Hamalytics on warchant.com. But I'm kind of curious, just the big picture as we start the show. What did you learn about NC State?
Okay, so they played 9 total games. Usually you'd have a lot more to consider at this point in the calendar of basketball season. Their first 3 games were 30-plus point wins, so that kind of skews the data a little bit. So that's a limitation of what the data will show. But Synergy, the group that we use for scouting reports and analytics, they love them on both sides of the court. They love them. They think they're really productive offensively. They think they're really productive defensively. But here's the weirdness. If you look at the ACC and what the ACC has shot against NC State from the field, they've shot over 45%, 45.5% in the 4 games they've played. What that would put NC State at in the field goal percentage defense rankings throughout the country is 263rd. That's terrible. Mm-hmm. So this is a team that's capable of beating North Carolina. Just look at their schedule. They're capable of beating North Carolina and taking a game Clemson Tigers team to overtime, and they're also capable of losing at home to Miami. So I think this is one of those ACC teams that's in the middle of the pack, no pun intended. If they win more 50-50 games, then they're inside the bubble. If they lose and get sloppy in a couple of those games, then they're outside the bubble. But they're dangerous enough to easily pose a challenge tonight.
NC State's been like that. Just think about the game we played against NC State a year ago. That was a big road win for the Noles. Florida State went into that game, and we had just watched NC State blow out, was it Duke or North Carolina? One of the two.
It was North Carolina.
It blew them out, and at the time we thought, well, this will be interesting. We were a little bit nervous. It was Duke. They had beaten Duke 88-66, Tom. And we thought, okay, well, now this will be interesting, having to go on the road and face that team. And the game was a weird one. Kind of a tale of 2 halves. The way the first half closed out, you were kind of worried about where this was headed. Slowly but surely, Florida State began to build a lead in the second half, and eventually they did get the win in that game, 67-61.
Yep.
So it wasn't a beatdown by any stretch of the imagination, and obviously Florida State did go on to have an incredible season. In that moment last year, to refresh everybody's memory, that win made Florida State 23-4, 13-3 on the ACC schedule. You really think back to last season. We're doing a lot of that right now because we haven't had enough of this season to get us through. But last year, that win, again, I remember coming in here talking to you and thinking, we're 23-4. It really was an unbelievable season. And that's not the kind of team we see in Tallahassee right now. Potentially they're a team that goes on to have a great season. But where we've been hurt, I think, with this absence of basketball is that growth. We haven't had a chance to watch them. We know they're capable of great things. We've seen stretches of play where they really are explosive. We've also seen them struggle to find what they are, both defensively and offensively. And at this point, I think it's a rocky ride over the next 3 games. I think this is an important game for Florida State tonight. We talked about it some yesterday on the show. I think the Noles need to win this one because I think you're kind of looking at a possibility of a 1-2 stretch over the next 3.
Right, and I get the idea that you're well rested because we haven't played in weeks. But, by the time you get to your third ACC level basketball game in a row on a Monday night playing Louisville on the heels of hosting NC State, then playing North Carolina. I mean, that's not one that I figure we're going to win. I think that your legs run out because basketball game shape is different than whatever they're doing and whatever they've been able to do in practice the last couple of weeks, and that's coming off of contact tracing. So get it tonight. This NC State team is game, but there's certainly a team that you can and should beat if you're going to be the Florida State program that we hold the standard to now. I get this context of the matchup, but still, this is a game you should win.
They're going to face a desperate NC State team, though, because of the aforementioned loss to Miami. You're going to get an angry NC State team. You're going to get a team that forces a ton of turnovers. So what I worry about is this Florida State team's offense and efficiency, because when you haven't played, you can't really simulate that in practice, especially if guys are missing practice. So it may be on paper a game that Florida State should win. I just don't know what we're going to get. I think there's a grand mystery here. We could look terrible tonight. We could absolutely come out and get blown out. I would not be surprised. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm only stating that it could happen, and it shouldn't be stunning if it does. By way of comparison, because they're such a talented and deep team, maybe they've practiced well. Maybe they've got really strong legs because they haven't had to play games, and they come out, take care of business, and dominate the game. That, too, wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I like that it's here. Yeah,
me too.
Typically, I wouldn't give a damn in this situation about whether they hop on a plane or not. But in this case, in a COVID year where most everything, when you're trying to break down anything, you're using analytics and scouting reports. In the end, it's one big Lou Holtz soundbite. That's what COVID is. That's what COVID does to the trends. It creates outliers where there would be trends. So, what the trend says about NC State is they give up a lot of shots in the baseline, the two corners and around the basket, all on the baseline. They don't defend it worth a damn. They do defend the wings well. Okay, where's Florida State good? Pretty good on the wing, so we could shoot the three from the wing. Is NC State really extending out and defending it well, or they faced a bunch of teams that can't shoot? It's just hard to know because the data isn't that big yet. The data sizes and sample sets aren't that large yet. So the one thing I know is that Miami's not very good. Boston College is not very good. And in those games, NC State's logged a 3-point win over BC and a 5-point loss to Miami. Clearly, this is a team that Florida State is capable of beating tonight.
Oh, without question. Well, they get out-rebounded, and they don't shoot well from the free throw line. We know that about NC State. So
worse than us.
Yeah, that's nice to see. If you're going to look at KenPom, we just pull up KenPom here for a second. NC State is 48th overall. Not bad. That's 57th in adjusted offense, 48th in adjusted defense. They're 140th in adjusted tempo, and you look at FSU, we're 35th overall, 40th in adjusted offense, 33 in adjusted defense, 108th in adjusted tempo. We're not playing fast either because we really don't know what we are right now.
Well, the other thing is you hear that adjusted defense, and you think about all the times that Florida State gets beat off the dribble at the rim, and you're like, still 33rd? Yes, the number's still very much like Florida State's rim protection defense, even though we've seen ball handlers get by. This is really interesting note on NC State that I found. They are amongst the elite in the country at generating shots and hitting shots off the dribble, and they're also exceptional at running the pick and roll.
Well, that's the problem since we haven't been good on defense.
Well, but that's not necessarily the dribble and getting to the basket. It's coming off the dribble and hitting shots at the top of the key. If you look at their map, they hit shots around the top of the key quite well. So the question is, all right, what have we done defensively to get better the last couple of weeks on the switch? And then how much will we fight through screens to contest shots off the screen? That will be the interesting thing tonight.
You've got a couple of three-point shooters, including a transfer from Nebraska that comes in that can really shoot from three, over 46% on the season. You've got two big men that they rotate in and out, and then they've got a lot of slashers and guys that they play around them. Devon Daniels, Jericho Helms, Manny Bates, Cam Hayes, Braxton Beverly, you know that name. All guys that you're going to want to pay attention to tonight for NC State. We're just getting underway with a little court report. It is, of course, brought to you by our friends at AAA Tree Experts and Landscaping. That's a Tallahassee staple for over 35 years. Would note this, they came out to my house and did a great job, and that's firsthand testimony for you. I had several trees, too, that were in a dangerous spot, one in the backyard that was also in a dangerous spot. Needed them to come out, get those trees in a quick fashion, but also grind the stumps and do all the cleanup. They did a tremendous job with that, and I couldn't recommend them more.
Little pro tip for those of you who are looking for work in your yards on the trees, this is the time of year to do it. Obviously hurricane season is later in the year, but if you're looking for maybe a little bit of a more reasonable break because their schedules are more open, you don't have to schedule something 6 weeks out.
Right.
January, February is a really good time to get work done on your tree.
To make said scheduling arrangement, 850-385-3319. 850-385-3319. That's AAA Tree Experts. More of Tallahassee Game Day's Court Report / Jeff Cameron Show in a moment. There was news this week, and it's significant. I would need to point this out. It happened yesterday. You could read about it anyhow yesterday. Florida State landing yet another elite player in the next class, and it is it's stunning to see what Florida State's been able to do in recruiting. You know, next year's class was already ranked in the top 3. Depending on where you look, Florida State had the top class, number 2 class, number 3 class. Either way, they were loaded for bear with a couple freshmen coming in next year, Tom, that are going to play right away. These are the kinds of studs that Florida State's been able to recruit lately. Some of them have eyes on going straight to the NBA after 1 year. But now they bring in the guard from Houston, Caleb Mills. And you may remember Caleb Mills if you watched college basketball last year. Kelvin Sampson's team was good. Houston was good. They were a top 15 team. And I remember a couple of nights during midweek flipping around watching college basketball thinking, wow, that kid's a freshman. Well, the reason you thought that was he's a pure scorer, and he lit it up. He led the team in scoring as a freshman. By the way, he became the first freshman in Houston's illustrious basketball history, I might add, to lead the team in scoring in over 40 years. He can score with either hand. He's a dribble drive, penetrating guy, 6'3" guard. He can score. He's got that natural knack. He can lay it off the glass with both hands. He can pull up and shoot. He's instant offense. And if you think about losing MJ Walker this year, after the end of this year, you're going to need a guy who can get in the lane and make plays and score the basketball, and this guy can do that.
I'm glad you mentioned MJ Walker, because if you look at his heat map and where he hit from his freshman year, and I pulled that data today, and I'll put that – this is the kind of stuff you can get at warchant.com right there. He hits from the same spots that MJ hit last year to the baskets left. I mean, that was the thing preseason was – man, MJ, if he goes to the left or if he spots up and he's open for a kick out to the left of the basket, that's a really good sign, because he was truly comfortable from there in his junior season. And Caleb Mills really does damage from there already in his career. There's a lot of development to go, but the scouting reports love him as a transition scorer, a place that Florida State is weak so far this year. They love him. He was a top 25% player as a spot-up shooter as a true freshman for Houston. That's huge. He needs a lot of work on defense, but this is the right program to get that work done.
Yeah, and he got others to help you out on defense here. He'll have to come in and learn it. Ham won't play you excessive minutes if you don't understand the concepts of what we're doing defensively, but you are going to need a scorer next year to replace MJ Walker, and this is the kid who I think comes in and does it. I would say this about from what I know of Caleb in looking at Mills and looking at his numbers, he also is better at getting to the basket than MJ Walker is. So you got a slasher here who can score, and it's a big, big get. He'll play right away offensively. He fits the bill right off the bat.
I wish he could come play right now for the way the transition offense looks here.
Yeah, he averaged 13.2 points per game last year for the Cougars. They were 23-8, and he came off the bench the last 7 games. He became, or really most of the games, I should say all but 7 games. And again, he led the Cougars in scoring instantly. He's a kid out of the state of North Carolina. He says that the reason for the transition, now he had an ankle injury this year. He hasn't been playing. He thanked Kelvin Sampson, said thanks a lot. You guys may remember Kelvin Sampson, formerly the Oklahoma coach, got into hot water not once but twice in his career, but a guy that can really recruit and a guy that can really coach. He did say, Kelvin Sampson did, about Caleb Mills, by far the best recruit we've brought in, best freshman we've brought in since I've been here at Houston. So high praise. They've turned out a couple good players in the last 5 years, so that's good to see. And then secondly, I think it's odd when you say you're coming to Tallahassee because you want to be closer to home. Well, I mean, you live in North Carolina. You're shaving off a couple hours, I guess. Something else had to be going on there. I don't know, but I don't care, because we're dipping into the portal as well now in basketball, and you're getting a bona fide scorer.
Yeah, that's huge, because what you were looking at with this class is they had one defection, and that was the McGowan's kid. My guess is that means he's not coming. And so they saw the writing on the wall, because I believe last I heard he was still considering Florida State as maybe an option, but they just went and moved on. If they get him still, that'd be amazing too. But you need somebody who can get out and transition and score, and you need somebody who's played in some big games already, because this one-and-done thing over and over again, it's great and it's fun, and it's great to see the NBA Knowles and that list get bigger and bigger, and the guys become starters instead of role players. But you've got to have some continuity and some veteran presence in the group. And even though he's only played 1 full year, that's more than these one-and-dones will have played. So he'll be kind of a veteran by the time that he starts with us next season.
And they knew what they were getting, Tom, because they recruited him out of high school. He was a kid they wanted to bring in previously, and he said no to Florida State. He said no to a lot of teams, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Marquette, Clemson, some other teams, to choose Houston. So they scouted him. They knew what he was originally. So they're not getting something. They're not getting the unknown. He's had conversations with Coach Hamilton and this staff before. That's very important.
2 words, culture fit.
Yeah, so there you go. You bring him in, instant scoring. That's a big deal. Now back to tonight's game. Just want to give you that information because it's kind of a big deal. Also should note, while we're giving out information that doesn't involve Florida State's game tonight, go take a look at what Patrick Williams is doing in the NBA. If you haven't listened to the Jeff Cameron Show lately, you should. I've talked about this some. Tom and I had a conversation about it. But the rookie is averaging double figures. He starts every night for the Bulls. I mean, that's doing some things.
He drew praise from Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi thought enough of him when they went heads up because there are a lot of comparisons in the NBA scouting community of the 2 players. But Kawhi thought enough of him to give him a hug and give him some words of encouragement before they walked off the court. The Clippers and Bulls had played this past weekend. How about that for a back-to-back assignment for Patrick Williams in week 2 or 3 of his NBA career? Yeah. He had LeBron one night and then Kawhi the same weekend.
And LeBron liked him, said as much. Kawhi said as much. The 2 arguably best players in the NBA just gave praise to a rookie out of Florida State for the Chicago Bulls.
One more note on Patrick Williams. Google search Patrick Williams and Chicago Tribune. You'll see an article that appeared this week in which Patrick Williams gives a paragraph about guarding Giannis, LeBron, and Kawhi and the things he learned he can and cannot do against each of them. It's really cool stuff.
That's fascinating. Good heads up. I'll read it as soon as we're done with this hour. Would note Florida State again. I hate to beat a dead horse here, but they have not played basketball in a long time. And it feels like they haven't played basketball in a long time. I hope it doesn't look like they haven't played basketball in a long time. But I do wonder, I think it's worth noting, if they don't play well in this first half, you could see a big deficit and have your hands full here early on. You can't know, and I hate the uncertainty of something like this because Florida State, frankly, needs a win. Last we saw, they weren't playing real well, and they seem to be sort of in a transitional phase. And Hamilton talked about, well, we may have to make some changes on defense. I don't know what we're going to see that's different on defense tonight. I suspect some changes. And I also wonder what we're going to get from this offense, which hasn't played in a while. That's my biggest fear. The delay and the layoff from playing basketball, competitive basketball, is problematic.
Yeah, one of the metrics I saw was that NC State offensively is one of the top 15% of the country at breaking the zone. So I don't know if tonight is the night you want to break that out for the first time because when they see it in the half court, they attack it and they destroy it. But Leonard's been interesting this weekend. You know it better than most that he speaks softly, but he is not to be trifled with.
Correct.
And some of the rhetoric around this game was he wants to see a greater consistency of effort. That tells me that practice has been tough the last week.
I think you have no choice but to put them through the ringer. I think that's what you've had to do because you're having to find some faux competition, something that is similar game-like, and you can do that in practice because you've got a deep team. By the way, it should be noted, NC State's a deep team too. They'll play 9-10 guys. Not everybody we face does. So this is a situation where perhaps Florida State's depth is not in a position to wear NC State down. Now, quality depth becomes a discussion at all times whenever teams face Florida State because the Noles generally speaking, have 8, 9, 10 guys that can really play. So some teams play 10 guys. They really count on 6 to do the damage, and there's some guys that spell them every now and then. Florida State will pull guys, and 8th, 9th guy off the bench is out there kicking ass in a given game.
I think they're 7 or 8 strong right now, and if Calhoun gets the minutes and or gets the defense, he'll be that, that extra body that could change games and yet is somebody who also can contribute defensively in a way that he's not doing so right now.
Well, the game's got to slow down for him. I mean, for me, it looks like it's all too fast for him right now. He is a hectic player to watch. That's the way I describe him. He sort of seems spastic at times. Everything is herky-jerky. There's no fluidity to what he's doing on either end of the floor, although it's in there. And the players have talked about it. Coaches have talked about it. I know those that have had a chance to witness practice talk about he's a different-looking guy. Well, remember, Patrick Williams had the light bulb go off, and it took a little while, too, 6, 7, maybe 8 games before he went, there it is, slow it down for him. Remember the Notre Dame game where he looked, everything was so fast in the basket. Everything, slow down,
the
man.
Duke game on the
time.
road, too.
Yeah.
He was almost like surprised that he could get so easily to the rim at Cameron Indoor, and I think maybe on the flight home he's going, that's nothing.
That's just who you are, man. Yeah. You can get there. Your body type, your size, your strength, your athleticism, your skill allows you to do that. they've got to get Calhoun to understand, no, man, your game works here. Slow down. You don't have to speed anything up. You got to utilize your skill.
The one thing about him is analytics would hate him, and that's okay because they're wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
He hits from
it doesn't
weird
tell
areas.
The whole story.
Yeah, he hits from weird areas in the court, and that's fine because you know what? Other teams are going to give him that, but you can tell he's got the touch. Whatever that little side runner hook shot thing is from about 10, 12 feet, you could tell that's one of his favorite shots to go to. It's like Michael Snare used to have that runner as well, where it's not what you draw up and ask for. You'd rather be closer to the basket, maybe go off the glass and in. But if it's what you feel comfortable with and you have the touch, then they're going to have to adjust that of what they're doing, and things are going to open up in different parts of the court. But Serdar has yet to prove that he can be out there for 8 minutes without causing the coaching staff to get pissed off at him and pull him back off.
Doesn't this seem like a night, too, where we see another reemergence and an assertion of dominance from Scotty Barnes? I mean, Cam Hayes is 6'3". He's a freshman playing for them. If you're going to stay with guards, Braxton Beverly, obviously a really good player and a very experienced player, but he's 6 feet tall and 170 pounds. If you want to look at some of the other guards that get run, Devin Daniels is 6'4". He's a guard. He's also an experienced player, but not an elite player. This should be a game, I would think, where Scotty Barnes could take advantage of the matchup.
What I'm really fascinated to see, given the length of Scotty Barnes and Polite, is, okay, off the screen action. You know, if they love to shoot off the screen, then can you extend through the defense? Can you fight through the screens, get your hand up? And, I mean, it screws up with what they want to do. You look at the ACC map of how they've attacked the 4 opponents. A lot of action is at the top of the key, which means that you've got to have the length and physicality to fight through the screens. It's a tough ask for a true freshman, but damn it, man, that's why you go get Scotty Barnes, because he can do things like that.
Just to give you the historical note that we like to do whenever we do these court reports, here you go. NC State does lead the all-time series. Oh, but a narrow margin. We got a chance to impact that tonight. 31 wins to 27 losses. The Noles, however, have won 5 of the last 6 meetings, including the last 3 here at the TLC-CC, where you do not just stroll on in expecting to walk away with a victory. Now, a little bit different set of circumstances as I make that long-running joke, and it's not a joke these days. We don't have the fans in the stands. We don't have the home court advantage that Florida State's developed, and that is a frustrating aspect of this COVID-ridden season because I know it's made a huge difference in the last few years, and I know that because Leonard Hamilton has told me that off the record as well as on it. So that's important to note. Florida State does normally have an environment that carries the day if all things are equal. And they don't have that right now during the time of COVID. They truly are kind of flying in the dark here, figuring things out without that momentum that you get at home.
Yeah, the thing that sucks beyond all the obvious first priority things about life and
sure, yeah,
you know,
the important
COVID
medical aspects, yes,
is when you're looking at the end of last season affected by COVID, it didn't stop there. It's affected the whole of this season. You know, the growth, the meteoric rise of this program. I don't think it stunted them in the recruiting class. How could it? Look at where Florida State sits next year, and then the recruit or the transfer that we started the segment with. But damn it, you want it to pay off. I mean, all this momentum. The kids had bought in years ago, but the general Tallahassee public had bought in the last, what would you say, 20, 30 home games?
Oh, easily. Yeah, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, probably the last 20 or 30 home games. That's fair. Yeah.
So this is one of those years where it pays off, and maybe it carries you to a finish line when you don't have the experience, especially a point guard that you typically would have. Maybe a whistle or two go your way because the building is electric.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll be loud enough for a COVID year. It's just not the same, and it's sad.
FSU is 13-14 against NC State under Leonard Hamilton. One of those rare things. Now, normally when you see a sub-500 record for Florida State under Leonard Hamilton against ACC foes, it's against the like of North Carolina or Duke or Virginia, the elite teams in the conference. But for NC State, they have a 1-game edge over Leonard Hamilton. Florida State is, though, Leonard Hamilton is 12-7 against them since Herb Sednek took it on down the road to Arizona State after the 2006 season. Ham is 5-3 against Sidney Lowe, 5-3 against Mark Gottfried, 2-1 against their current coach Kevin Keatts.
Mark Gottfried.
Yeah,
sorry,
you
forgot about that
him,
guy.
Right?
Yeah.
FSU is 15-8 overall at the TLC-CC against the Wolfpack, 6-5 under Coach Hamilton, and there you have it. They are 7-9 at the PNC Arena, but we're not going there, so don't worry about that. Tonight's game is right here at the TLC-CC. More of Tallahassee Game Day Court Report brought to you by Lisa's Paint and Body Shop, proud longtime supporters of the tournament train. Lisa's Paint and Body Shop reminds you that it's your choice to find a body shop that's looking out for you and looking out for your needs. Lisa's Paint and Body Shop, 2820 Mahan Drive, and online at lisaspaintandbody.com. Court Report continues in a moment.
Tom Lang.
Florida State, NC State, 6:30 tonight at the TLC Double C. Damn it. Got to make it happen. It is sadly part of the ACC network. That is DirecTV channel 612 to all you bars out there. If you got the way in which we can bring that puppy up and watch a little ACC network on 612 DirecTV, there you go. That's what you do. That's all you can do. Frustrating. I'm ready for the impact of the ACC network to be felt here in good old Tallahassee, Florida, as that deal that has not been made available seems more and more likely the closer we get to that Comcast Xfinity contract being up.
Yeah, with Disney, maybe Swafford just sat on a throne of lies, and now he's out, and so he doesn't have to be held accountable for
Well,
it.
but thankfully we have a man who's not going to sit idly by and just hope it happens.
You're damn right we do.
Got a guy who's a go-getter, aggressively so, and I think we're going to have a little bit of help in that regard. By the way, NC State has played down to their competition this year, and it's been weird. So I don't know, will they view this as a huge game and opportunity? Perhaps, probably so. You know, that's another reminder of who we are these days in the world of college basketball. I was hoping that, maybe they'll be of the mindset that Florida State hadn't played in a while. We've been able to get most of our games in, all that good stuff. But I think they'll probably look at this as a resume-boosting victory, so we're going to have to bring it.
Well, here's the place where, remember the second half against Florida. Of course, the first half of that game took a turn for nothing that had to do with sports.
That's correct.
And we're happy that Keontae Johnson is now actually coaching for the University of Florida basketball program. That's great. But remember in the second half, the nastiness of MJ Walker, the nastiness of Scotty Barnes, and you saw that maybe there's an identity forming here of us wearing the black hat a little bit and being those finishers and those guys after that piss you off if it's not your team. We need to see that tonight. Because I agree with you that NC State comes down here looking at the record here for most of ACC opponents overall over the last 3 or 4 seasons, and this is a really good chance to get a resume-building win, especially if they're going to be a middling team in the ACC. It's a win over a team like Florida State on the road that could put you over the top. So you don't want to get ambushed here. You want to be ready to go right at the outset. Let's get that nasty snarl look in all of our faces again and maybe impose our will a little bit.
I will point something out that I pointed out earlier in the hour just because I think it bears repeating. If you're tuning into this game, you're wondering what the complexion of this game looks like. How does it play? We can look at all those things from Ken Palm and adjust to tempo and all those things. I'm telling you how it's going to play early. NC State is desperate to get a win. They've dropped 2 straight. They're angry about the way they've played. They're better than that. Statistically, it says they're better than that as well. And this is a resume builder. It's a chance to get a win and get back in the win column. Obviously, they have high hopes for their season. They're going to play very aggressively, and we're going to have to match that intensity, and I hope we have our sea legs. I just don't know. Again, there are worlds of difference between practicing very, very hard, scrimmaging in practice, and going good against good and all that stuff. It's different when you face an opponent in a real game as officiated by ACC officials. It becomes a different look. I'm worried this is a game in which we start slow, and then we've got to catch back up. And maybe that's unavoidable. That's not even something where I would blame the coaches. You either do or you do not play games in the span of 2 weeks, and we haven't.
And the hard part here is a question that we asked, you asked specifically Leonard Hamilton, but we've been asking it aloud for weeks, has still yet to be answered because we're not playing any basketball games. What do you do with Malik, and how does that impact the 5 you put on the floor? Do you play big? Do you play small? Is Malik a part of that lineup with Bojo? Or Bojo, listen to me. With Balsa Steel?
He's still around? My goodness gracious.
Boy, what a generalization. A tall white dude. not from America.
A foreign tall white guy. Yeah. Yes.
So if Balsa's on the court, does that mean Malik's not allowed to be switching 1 through 5? Leonard has lamented that we cannot do that this year. So do you switch 1 through 5 if Malik is on the court? And then just you don't do it if Balsa's on the court? I mean, all of these questions are going to be very fascinating, and you're not going to get all the answers tonight, but this is going to be a window into all the work they've done from the time that COVID put us on hiatus to tonight. Where they come out, some of the adjustments you see, that'll tell you what they've been doing in practice and the things they think that they can do.
I wondered when Coach brought up the fact that they couldn't switch 1 through 5 like they have in years past, and he had some other things to say about adjustments they needed to make, and he was a little bit more ambiguous about what some of those were. He was a little bit more straightforward about the defensive adjustments, more ambiguous about the offensive adjustments. I wondered if that didn't exactly, to your point, center around Malik Osborne, because I think he regrets that they're not getting out of him what they know he can be.
Well, the one thing I've seen, just the naked eye and somebody who is looking at scouting reports and is, an above average basketball knowledge person, but certainly nobody like Zach Lowe or anything like that, is they are missing opportunities after the screen for whoever it is, whether it's Balsa or whether it's Malik, cutting towards the rim. I mean, there are open looks for all the guards to just hit an easy pass. You either get a foul at the rim or you get a dunk, an and one, or just an easy basket. One of those three things. They've missed on that a lot. But Malik's game is also one in which he shoots 15-footers and some three-pointers. And that's what he was brought here to do. So, I mean, how do you feature that when Raekwon Gray has played a lot better this year? Because Raekwon is kind of taking up some of those spaces on the court. It's just, it's like you have a couple of puzzle pieces that fit in the same spot, and you just need to choose which one you want to put there on a given night.
One thing to note, normally, and it's just because I admire it and I've seen it firsthand, Leonard Hamilton has coached here at FSU for nearly 20 years. He's coached college basketball for 34 years. There isn't anything under the sun he hasn't seen, but he's incredibly patient. He's patient in a way that makes me uncomfortable. It's an admirable quality, I must admit, because generally speaking, his patience has paid off. But it makes it uncomfortable when you're trying to figure things out on the fly and you don't know what he's going to do, because he is not going to hurry this process. And if that means you lose a game while he figures something out, Ham will do it. Now, he didn't want to, but he speaks about the luxury of winning games while you're figuring out who you are. And lately, the last couple of years, we've been so talented that that's the truth. While we were figuring these things out so that we could be at our best at the end of the season, they won games. Most teams can't do that. Most of the time when you're making those kinds of adjustments and you're figuring out what something is or is not, you lose basketball games, and I'm worried this team will lose basketball games because of the oddity of the season, the spaced-out nature of the games, and then the personnel.
Okay, two things. Number one, they shortened the bench to get wins early in the season. So he broke from that because they did not have the exhibition run-up.
And he wanted revenge against Indiana, and the other was Florida. So what are you going to do?
Correct. But then number two is the urgency in his rhetoric. Second time I'll mention it today, but the urgency in his rhetoric is a little bit different heading into this game. Maybe he sees the next week as a 3-pack of games, and you've got to get this one like we're talking about.
Yeah.
But his rotation, the way he plays with guys with 2 fouls, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. His willingness to put in maybe Ngome or Quincy Ballard, or maybe not putting them in at all. Calhoun's minutes, these are all going to be little insights as to whether or not he is as patient tonight as he normally has been the last few years. Maybe he's not.
Let's go find out. This is an expedition. We're going to go learn something tonight at the TLC Double C 6:30 tip-off, ACC Network, Florida State, NC State. Noles looking to get a win, bounce back here, and get back underway in their season. Hopefully it happens. Good work out of you, Tom. We're not done yet. I just realized that. We've got predictions coming up, so I'll slow my roll. Maybe I got to slow down. That's right. Tallahassee Game Day Court Report returns in a moment.
Tom Lang.
As we wrap it up on Tallahassee Game Day Court Report / Jeff Cameron Show today. Today's game predictions brought to you by Lane's Medical Shop with locations in Colquitt, Donaldsonville, Tom. That's right. Lane's Medical Shop offers all your medical supply needs and will even deliver to you with emergency service available. Lane's Medical Shop, 229-308-5811. You know what I bet? Just got a suspicion here, because it's usually true of little country towns. They always have some secret. There's always something where you're like, hey, have you ever been over to Colquitt? Best bread you've ever had. There's always something weird like that, you know? So I have a suspicion that Donaldsonville or Colquitt has some great place, this hidden gem beyond Lane's Medical Shop, which is important, of course. But I bet there's something unique to those areas.
So in yesteryear, it would always be like a diner or a country steakhouse.
Right.
But now a lot of these towns have awesome craft breweries. They're like, have you been there? Oh, they're the truth now. If you like porters or stouts, you got to head on down to Donaldsonville.
Yeah, so I'm waiting for somebody to let me know what that is. It's kind of a cry for help. Let me know why, other than if I needed emergency service from Lane's Medical Shop, why I would need to go to Colquitt or Donaldsonville.
Hopefully not, but, if you do, then...
Like, let's say I don't need Lane's, and I just want to see that, I want to find out about the speakeasy or whatever it is that's there. Somebody reach out to us and let us know. Jeff, what? Best apricots you've ever had right there in Colquitt. So I'm really looking to find whatever that thing is. I know that is a thing. All right, so I don't know what to predict with this. I haven't seen us play in 6.5 months. We haven't played a game of basketball in forever. It's ridiculous. It feels like that game that we last played was played like December the 4th. Like we had just begun the month.
No, yeah.
It feels ridiculous. I have no idea what to expect from this basketball team tonight. I feel like this is an unfair question to ask me to predict. I'll predict the Noles win at home. How about that? But I don't think they're going to look good. I really don't.
So here's my worry tonight is one of the non-mentioned players for NC State is senior DJ Funderburk. What is it? Awesome name. I mean, just fantastic. 6'10". He's 225.
Oddly, there's been a lot of Funderburks play over the years in college and pro basketball.
Could be related to the other,
be
the glorious dynasty of the Funderburks.
Yeah.
And he was around on last year's team. But this year, if you're looking at ACC play and baskets in close, and this is something that we struggle with, and we don't know what our lineup's going to be and whether we want to play big or we want to play small. But NC State has hit about 60 shots in ACC play at the rim, meaning dunks, putbacks, those types of things. He's hit a quarter of those, and you're talking about few shots. So he's a very efficient player for NC State. That is somebody in a game where you're rusty, it's been a long time, the battle along the boards is a place that might come back late. Maybe it's like a short game in golf, but you got to be physical at that point. And Funderburk certainly is. That's the guy I'm worried about tonight. The fact that NC State shoots the free throw at the free throw line worse than Florida State is
nice
a really comforting thing. If you looked at Florida State's stats and you see what they've shot from the free throw line this year, which is a shade under 70%, and what their opponents have shot, it's absurd. Opponents for Florida State this year have shot 77% from the free throw line. That would be in the top 15% of the country. So basically, you're facing an automatic team every single night. Hopefully, NC State can bring that number down. The other couple of things I've seen about NC State, their assist-to-turnover ratio is garbage in ACC play. The rebounding margin is not good in ACC play. All of the numbers in the 4 games they played in conference say that this should be a win for Florida State. The game is at home. Come on, Noles, let's roll.
You know what I remembered? I remembered Lawrence Funderburk. That's what I was remembering. He played with the Chicago Bulls in 2005. Before that, he was with the Sacramento Kings for almost 10 years. I did remember a Funderburk, damn it. I knew he was there. And I also remember he was a badass dunker. In fact, he won the slam dunk contest. I knew I wasn't.
Did he really?
Yes, back in 96, Tom. I knew I wasn't nuts. He could drive it home, buddy.
He's son of Karen Crew and Derek Funderburk. So I don't know if Derek is somebody who, I was looking up his profile on NC State's website.
Yeah, no, Funderburk was a beast. I remember old Lawrence Funderburk. He had a problem with Bobby Knight. He transferred. He ended up going to Ohio State. He later became friends with and teammates with Jimmy Jackson. Remember Jimmy Jackson?
DJ's out of Cleveland. You never know.
Could be. There you go. The old man in me remembered something. Yay, Lawrence Funderburk. All right, so That's not the Funderburk we have to worry about tonight. Tonight's Funderburk is 6'10", 225 pounds, and looks jovial when he plays the game of basketball. Just an aside, that shouldn't make you like him or dislike him. Just note when you watch him play, I remember him from before. He cracks me up. He's always smiling. Kind of like that about the kid. Just something to point out. Go Noles tonight. Thanks for listening to Tazi Game Day Court Report, the Jeff Cameron Show. You guys, coming up next, Seminole Headlines. 2 hours, 4 to 6 for you of Seminole Headlines. We'll talk about those transfer portal additions. We'll talk about the basketball team, the coaches, and the game tonight as well. Good job, Tom. Good job, Matthew. Go Noles. Talk to you tomorrow.